Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Grace Lauren Taylor, and you are listening to episode 15 of the Trauma Dump Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at the Trauma Dump Podcast, we seek to answer the question, what is mental health? How do I take care of my own? And how do I support others? This week, we will be discussing the topic of repairing the toxic family system with our special guest, Castillo. Please go check her out on Instagram and on TikTok to support her for being on this episode of the podcast. All right. If you couldn't tell, my hair is orange. Yeah, I did this on kind of a whim, just a little bit, because it's spooky season, and I wanted to feel spooky. So if you're watching us over on YouTube, you can tell that I did dye my hair. What do you think? It's wet right now, so probably by the end of the episode, you'll see it more dry, a bit fuller. But yeah. This is the vibe I'm going for this spooky season. I want to be a pumpkin. And so I decided to be a pumpkin head. So this week we will be discussing the topic of repairing the toxic family system. Remember, if you'd like to share on the show, please message us in our Discord in the podcast participants channel, and we will match you to the right episode. Just a quick disclaimer before we start. I am not a licensed health professional, okay? I have no licensing whatsoever. I'm not a counselor. I'm kind of like a peer. I have gone through significant trauma throughout my life, and that is why I want to talk about it. This podcast only seeks to create community and further understanding of these topics that are so often misunderstood and so many people are extremely misinformed about. So I've done countless hours of research, and if you would like to see my research, I cite my sources in the description on both YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. If you or a loved one are in need of medical professional help, we have resources in our description. The topics discussed here are for a mature audience, so viewer discretion is always advised. Many people don't realize the effects of their family environment during childhood until they're well into adulthood. Identifying toxic family dynamics is the first step in gaining control and establishing healthy family practices, as well as beginning your own individual healing. In this episode, we will discuss what a toxic family system is and what are the steps that can be taken to begin healing and prevent further trauma down, the generation. I think in either episode 2 or 3, I think it's episode 2. In episode 2, I talk about generational trauma all on my own. In this episode, we will also be discussing generational trauma and how do we heal that? How do we prevent further generational trauma? The idea of a perfect family has been a concept that many, many people have strived for, but oftentimes the exact opposite is really the reality, right? When we think of the perfect family, instantly what comes to my mind, because I'm in America, I think of white picket fence, mom and pop, right? 2 kids, a dog, everyone is getting along. And that's really the idea of the 50s kind of family, the nuclear family, if it were. And the exact opposite is the reality. Women in the 50s were abused, extremely abused. They had no access to money. Women didn't get credit cards until the 1970s. Isn't that wild? But again, when we think of the perfect family, it's usually 2 parents and their kids, and everybody is connected, loving, and supportive of one another. And oftentimes, that's not our reality, right? We have conflict with our family. We have conflict with our siblings. We have conflict with our parents. And more often than not, divorce rates are rising. It's very true. They estimate that about 50% of marriages end in divorce. And so less and less people are getting married. less and less people in my generation are getting married or are getting married much later in life. According to Dr. Wendy Boring-Bray, DBH, LPCC, one way to cope with a toxic family is to learn boundaries and how to use them. If you don't know much about boundaries or are not the best at enforcing them, talking with a counselor can help you. Boundaries can be hard to be put in place, especially when you're not actively using them. So don't feel bad if you haven't been successful in creating, establishing, or keeping them. After talking with a counselor, you will be more confident and prepared to use and enforce them with your toxic family.
Okay. Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. So today we're going to be talking about the toxic family system. So before we start this interview, I would like to address how you would like to be referred to in the podcast. What are your pronouns?
She, her, and hers.
Awesome, awesome. And I would like to confirm with you that you are perfectly okay with sharing your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Just to, you know, have that little disclaimer in there if you ever feel uncomfortable, to make sure I'm not crossing any boundaries and respecting your experiences. Please feel free to interrupt me at any time if you feel uncomfortable with a question. Also, we can take a break at any time. And if you don't feel like answering a question, please tell me just to skip it. I promise I won't get offended because my priority is to make sure that you feel safe at all times.
Fabulous.
So, a marker of the toxic family system is enmeshment. According to Melissa Pori, LPC, each family is connected, bonded, and supportive in different ways. Some family dynamics are considered healthy, while others are a bit more concerning. Enmeshment occurs when family members are emotionally reactive to one another and completely intertwined in an unhealthy way. In an enmeshed relationship, there is no emotional independence or separation between the parent and the child. This can lead to a child's inability to form individual thoughts and behaviors that are separate from the parent. Have you ever dealt with any type of enmeshment?
Not in my personal family units because
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much of like a family life.
Mm,
But I've definitely observed it in other uh families, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. I dealt with a lot of enmeshment growing up, um, from my mother. And Um, it was very complicated because the way that I always saw it, and it was verbalized too. Whenever my mother was upset, no one was allowed to have any like joy in the house, like instantly
Yeah.
sapped out of our house. And my mother does have bipolar disorder. So this was quite often where she would be extremely angry. And if she was angry with one person, she was angry with everybody in the house. Nobody got a pass. And the enmeshment was really like if she was angry, one of us had to pacify her, especially when we were little. And it really fell upon my youngest sibling to pacify her all the time, to the point where my dad would say, "Okay, boy, go to your mommy. She's upset. Go pacify your mommy. Go hug your mommy. Go to your
Mm.
mommy's room." And it was very, very frustrating because we would have like things that we needed to do. But if mom was mad, say if we had a soccer game and mom was mad, we weren't going to that soccer game. If we had a
Wow.
family event and mom was mad, we were not going to that family event, no matter even if it was Christmas. If our mother was upset with anything, like any level of upsettedness, we were not allowed to do anything. And it was very frustrating. With enmeshment, the emotional bond between family members is intertwined without any separation. And the opposite end of that spectrum is disengagement. Disengagement occurs when family members are completely emotionally separated from one another. Both
Right.
are considered unhealthy opposites of the spectrum and can have concerning implications on a child's development and well being. disengagement is actually a form of abandonment, which can lead to anxious attachment styles and create further trauma as that child, grows up into adulthood. Have you ever experienced disengagement?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is the best word to describe the engagement that I've had with all of my family members.
Mm.
Especially because when you wrote in there that the disengagement is is a form of abandonment. Because my mother committed suicide when I was 18, but even before that, my dad left the house at 11. When I was 11, and was kind of touch and go. After that, we were very close before then. So yeah, I think when someone in your family unit, your core family unit, and my mother had already just like completely disengaged from life at that point too.
Mm-hmm.
She had an eating disorder. She was an alcoholic. She was a beautiful woman, but she was like a sister, not a mother. She'll like ask me for alcohol because my stepdad would take all hers away. And when she went to the mental hospital, she would ask me to eat her food, and I would, so she could get out faster. So yeah, like it was she definitely disengaged from like the mother role, and especially because she killed herself. But also, the father of my son, I thought he was like my best friend, and it was my second husband, and he had a secret girlfriend, and he worked to take my son away from me at my most vulnerable, at my most broke. I was so broke, and he did it right. And I thought we were best friends. I thought we co-parented well, and I think that definitely felt like a huge knock to me, because we had been married for a long time. We had a great marriage, and then some bad things came up about his dad that I couldn't get over because he had hidden it from me. And then when I left him, we were still kind of trying to work on things, but still be friends and co-parent. And then finally, I left Texas and moved to North Carolina, and I thought he was going to come with me, so he could be closer to his son. Come find out he had a secret girlfriend for like 3 years the whole time. I never knew about it. And then he got like a lawyer, and I couldn't afford a lawyer at the time because I was just starting out my life. He took my son from me, and because in Texas it's about money. In North Carolina they do mediators, and they don't care if you have a lawyer or not. They do it really fair. And I lost my son, and I haven't heard from him in a year. And yeah, he would talk like my son was 7 and 8, and he would tell me I'm disgusting and I was a liar. And it's like, I hope he doesn't feel abandoned. So it's like I on both sides of it, because I've become both people, and it sucks because I really just want to tell. I even showed up at their house. Like on the court order, I'm not allowed to, because I mean I couldn't afford a lawyer anymore. I couldn't pay my lawyer, so she fired me as a client. So I lost everything. I didn't get anything I wanted in the divorce. And I'm not even allowed to see my son until he's 18, except supervised. Like everything I lost. And I showed up just to tell my son I love him. I didn't care if I went to jail. Showed up at their house. I said, son, it's mommy. He tried to run to me, and I stopped him. But yeah, he tells me I look like I'm disgusting. So anyways, I don't know if that had anything to do with what we were talking about.
It does. And something that I want to reinforce with anybody who's on here who goes off on a tangent, it's what your brain is doing to cope with the question, right?
For sure.
This is a conversation more than an interview, in my own opinion. And, we were talking about, disengagement, abandonment. And from what I hear, like you were abandoned by your family. You were abandoned by your parents. Suicide is a form of abandonment. It definitely is. And whatever choices came about with, your own family dynamic, I'm sure that you feel that your son feels abandoned by you. And that probably breaks you so much because you know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to name him, but the father of my son, his parents are still married.
Mm-hmm.
And the girlfriend he's got, her parents are still married. But me, it's like I was a kid, a product of a divorce. I know what it feels like to be torn between two parents. I know what it's like for two parents who's come from married families to just try to play a kid like a pawn. And I did not ever do that with my son. I think that's why I don't try to keep contacting with him, because they are poisoning his brain, and that's more damaging to him than me to keep trying to call him. I feel like it's better for me to stay away. That's less damaging than me to keep calling him and then putting stuff in his brain and confusing him. It's just not. I think me staying out of his life at this moment, at this pivotal time of, because he was 7 and 8, and now he's 9, moving on up to maybe 12. I think this time where he starts trying to form his own self-thought, his own, who am I? I think it's best for me to stay out of it, because he knows I'm part of him. And if they say, oh, she's disgusting and she's a liar and your mom is terrible and nasty and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even know where they get these things from. They're just, they're very uneducated, and
they're also poisoning him because he's half of you. And so he's going to get this reflection of himself like,
right.
Oh my goodness, they're saying all these horrible things about my mother. I am part of my mother. Yeah, they're causing a lot of harm.
Because when they have my phone number, they prank call me. They still try to contact me on Snapchat under different things, pretending to be my brother was the most recent one, but with the wrong birth date and clearly the wrong astrological sign. They're like obsessed with me, and I don't even know why. I'm like, you have my son. What do you want? What more do you want? Like, why are you upset? But it's not only that. It's like my mom's family blamed me for my mother's death, despite knowing that telling me that she had tried to do it before I was even born. So it's like, I don't know, and they don't, and they hold that grudge against me. So anything I do good, they want to see me do bad. You know what I mean?
Yes. It sounds like you're the family scapegoat. That's what it really sounds like.
Yeah. When I read that, I've highlighted it in the outline, in my answers to it, because I wanted to make sure I stayed on task, which I'm not doing.
It's okay. No worries. Like that's my job. My job is to keep us on task and, keep the conversation flowing. So each family is made out of multiple subsystems, including a spousal system, a parent-child system, and then a sibling system. So when family relationships are enmeshed, there's no separation between these systems, right? There's no separation at all. Everybody is like one unit. Right. And each level should have independence from the other one for healthy functioning. So parents, when this is something that I've had to drill in, because I have a partner and his name is Joey, and he's okay with me mentioning him on the podcast. Like I mention him all the time, but we've had counseling. We've had counseling together about separating ourselves from, our previous family systems and becoming our own family system. And our therapist has told us about, when, like, there's this Bible verse, right? Man leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife. Right. And when I think of that, it's like so you create your own family unit. The parents, the spouses, they have their own independent lives apart from their children and apart from each other, and they have their own life together. And that independence creates healthy functioning. So parents should never rely on their children for any form of emotional support. And it sounds like your mother, where you said she was more like a sister, than an actual mother to you, it sounds that is also a form of enmeshment, is whenever a parent considers their child as a peer before the child is even, an adult. And even then, there's this huge imbalance because your parent has always been an authority for 18, 20 something years in your life.
Right.
And then they want to be a peer to you. They're never fully going to be a peer. And my heart hurts for you because I resonate with that. My mom, off and on, would try to be a peer to me. When I was a child, she would call me her best friend. When I was 5,
Yeah.
she would dress me up to look like her. I don't know. There was no differentiation, which is another big word that people need to understand. So differentiation is to be able to think of yourself as other from another thing. You can have similarities, right? But you're an entire different entity. And with enmeshment, there's no differentiation. When parents try to seek support from their children will often become problem solvers. And it's a huge thing with any child because no child wants to see their parents suffer, no matter how much there's a bad relationship or conflict. No child wants to see their parents suffer. And I know this for a fact that my mother relied on us children, there's 3 of us, for emotional support, validation, stuff like that. Right. And we were not really encouraged to form, our own sibling relationships or function separately from our mom. When I went off to college, my mother made this deal. I call it deal with me. Because she's like, I'm not going to pay for your college unless you come home every weekend and clean my house.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. And I was a theater major at Texas Tech University. I graduated with my BA in theater. And so we had auditions on different weekends, right? And I remember the 3rd weekend I was at college, I had a huge auditions week. And so I texted my dad. I was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to come home this weekend to clean. My dad's like, no problem. No worries. I didn't expect you to come at all to clean. And I was like, okay, cool. And I texted him. I was like, hey, I left behind this and this. Is there any way you can ship it to me? And he's like, yeah, no worries. And then while I'm in class, I get 15 calls, one right after the other from my mother. And I have to turn off my phone because I'm in a giant auditorium, right? The sound reverberates off of the walls. And so immediately when I get off class, I'm like, I have 15 calls from my mother. I listen to the voicemail and she's screaming at me. She's like, how dare you? I'm never paying for your college. You were the worst person in the whole world. All these horrible things. And so I start crying, right? That's a natural reaction, start crying. And my teachers are like, hey, what's happening? I'm like, my mom is saying she's not going to pay for my college. And my mom started sending me screenshots how she took herself off of my FAFSA paperwork. She took herself off of the website where that was sending money. And so within a week, I get a call from the dean of admissions saying that I'm going to get kicked out of Texas Tech if I don't have tuition. And so I have to get my dad to make a separate bank account from my mother because they had a joint bank account and he wasn't allowed to have his own bank account. So he made a separate account just to start paying for my school. And I went no contact with my mom until COVID happened and I was forced to come home. But she wouldn't let me live in her house. My dad had to have an RV for me to live in that was connected to the house because I wasn't allowed in her house.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And, abandonment is abuse. That's a form of abandonment. Disengaging is a huge form of abandonment. And I want to ask you, when you think of yourself being abandoned, what has been one of the key moments of abandonment in your life?
I would have to say, probably my mother's death would be the genesis of a lot of the things that started bad decisions and bad behaviors. I didn't deal with the grief of that until probably last week when I did psychedelic therapy for the first time.
Mm.
And that was the most amazing thing because now I feel like when I talk about it, there's no trauma related to it at all for the first time in my life. And I've never ever experienced it. So it's hard for me to articulate trauma when I discuss my mother's suicide because I no longer feel trauma related to it anymore. But my decisions over the past 20 years, should be dead 20 years in May. My decisions over the past 20 years clearly show that I was suffering from trauma and unresolved grief. I was making a lot of self-harmful decisions and self-destructive decisions. I was a heroin addict for 4 years and IV heroin addict, and I was a prostitute for more than that. I was a prostitute even long after I had gotten off heroin just because that was all I knew. I was still doing illegal work and not realizing my worth. But my heart is still very tender for sex workers because a lot of those women they've been through so much sexual abuse. I was raped at 14. I was still a virgin. My mother said it was my fault because I was drinking. So, it's like these girls and the men as well, like anybody in sex work. I remember hearing this when I first started dancing. It's like 100% of all the girls in sex work have been sexually abused or something like that. And it's like, wow. And it's true. You talk to them and all of them have some type of story.
Yeah. Yes. And my goodness. I know some, sex workers. I am friends with one and she's a dancer. I love her to pieces. And she has so much trauma. She's so much trauma.
Yeah.
She's part of the reason why I started the podcast in the first place. Because I so desperately wanted to help her, but there's nothing I can do because she doesn't want help. Right.
That's why I'm becoming a social worker because I feel social workers are so out of touch. They're so out of touch with reality. But the basic tenets of social work says you're supposed to use your lived experience. You're supposed to come, like with an openness, but they're not coming from that. And so you've got these men and women in social work, children, or not social work, but sex work, and children in sex work. I used to live in Las Vegas. I lived there for 3 years. I lived in Myrtle Beach, which is also a sex work and trafficking hotspot. And, I've lived in both places and worked in both places. And also here in North Carolina. And I'm telling you, like, there's children in this business, like children. And they don't want to do it, but they don't know any better. It was like me. I didn't know that I was worth anything more. And I had a college degree, I had a psychology degree, but I didn't feel like I was worth trying to go find a job in
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. Like I love my friend to pieces. I would do anything for my friend. And she tells me all the time, "Oh, I've tried to get normal jobs, but I'm not worth it." All the time she'll say, "Oh, I've tried, but I'm not worth it." And this is just, I guess it's just easy. It comes natural. I'm like, no, it doesn't come natural. The only reason why you think it comes natural is because you were so abused. You were so
and that's all
abused.
she thinks she's worth, because that's all she's been shown. And eventually, though, I'm 38. I just turned 38 yesterday. So
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So it's like once you reach, I hope other sex workers don't reach this age. I aged out. And they really don't age out of that business, really, do you know? But when you want to make a certain amount of money, yeah, you age out. And not only that, but like I have a 12-year-old daughter and I wanted to set a good example for her. I didn't want to keep lying and living a lie. And do I think it should be illegal? I don't even think it should be illegal, to be real, because I think it would take the children out of the business. It wouldn't be so dark and sick and twisted. because I've been through some really traumatic stuff through it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think so that when you get out of the business, you feel lost. You feel like poor, but you think you're making a lot of money, but you're not.
It's often said that a key sign that you have experienced a toxic family is that you do not feel loved or respected. Does that resonate with you?
It does resonate, absolutely, because for a long time, I didn't feel respected anywhere I went, mostly because it was me deflecting how I felt about myself on the inside, because it was what I was taught by my family. I didn't even realize like what a family unit was like. I'm in a marriage now, and I posted, about how it has been abusive, but it's not that way now because he's a combat veteran. He goes to the VA, gets like narcissistic personality disorder classes and anger management and all this stuff. It's completely changed. And that's why I posted the video, because people could see, well, that's what it can be like. But yeah, so with that said, I forgot what we were talking about because I got to thinking about that.
We're talking about you don't feel loved or respected.
Yeah, I didn't feel loved or respected. I was getting into bad relationships, and I was not a good parent. I didn't know how to be a parent. And then when I got with him, despite the abuse, he taught me that you could read a book to your kids. I didn't know that. He taught me that you ask your kids what they ate for lunch. I didn't know that. You ask your kids how their day was, who they talk to, who their friends are. I didn't do that. I didn't know about that. I didn't know anything about that. And then you talk to your kids and say, okay, what kind of homework do you have? I didn't know that. My mom just let me be. I was really smart. I loved school. It was the only place that got attention. So I was good at school, and nobody asked me nothing else. And I didn't even know my kids were failing because I didn't know. And I felt awful. And despite the abuse in our relationship, I learned a lot and we've grown a lot. And so when you said y'all went to counseling, I think that's great. I think every relationship has the potential to be repaired if both people want to do it. I think I'm one of those people who sees good and positive in pretty much everything. I think that I was a heroin addict and a prostitute, and I'm not anymore. So
yeah, I think anybody can change. Yes, anybody can change. Everybody can grow. Everyone can mature over time. Change is the only constant in life. And from my own experience, yes, everyone has a past, but your past you should not reflect your present you. And you should not be judged. My personal belief is no one should be criticized for the decisions that they've made in the past if they've acknowledged them, if they have changed their behavior, and if they have moved forward. And it sounds like you've done all three. It sounds like you have done all three to improve yourself, to improve your own relationship, to try to improve your relationship with your children. I mean, props. That takes a lot. That takes a lot. It's hard.
It is hard. I'm trying to be everything my mother wasn't. She was so beautiful. Now I'd love to look like my mother, but I've gotten to where I focus more on my inner beauty. Like I talked about, I have an allergy thing on my eye, and it's like, but last year this time I would have canceled this whole thing until everything cleared up. I mean, but now I'm just like, I'll throw some glasses on and let's do this. It's like whatever, because it's more important to get the word out and have this conversation and stick to my agreements than to worry about something that I can just cover up with some glasses.
Yes. Very true. And, I think as you start to, mature, because the maturity process is very different for everyone.
For sure.
I know because of my own experiences as a child. When I was 5 years old, everyone would tell me that I was so mature. Everybody.
No.
And it's
trauma.
Yes, it is trauma. because I was never able to be a child. You know, I had two younger siblings who I was responsible for. I was told like all the time by my dad, my mom, that I'm responsible for them. And I know my dad had all the best intentions when he said that I was responsible for my brothers, but my mother didn't. My mother, I truly believe she did not want to be a mother in the sense of being a mother. I think she wanted the status of being a mother. I think she wanted all the bells and whistles of it. I think she wanted the admiration, the praise of being a mother, because she saw it as like the highest form of martyrdom, which she really likes to be. But as a child, as 5 years old, my grandmother will tell me all the time that I had, like, she would be like, you have just such old eyes. She would always tell me all the time, she's like, you have such old eyes. And looking back on that as a 23-year-old, like, I didn't get to be a kid. I
Right.
didn't. I can count on my hands how many play dates I had my entire childhood. I can count
Wow.
how many times I was allowed to be myself because, you know, granted, my parents let me be in choir and let me be in shows, but that was an obligation. They wanted me to be
Right.
better than everybody else. They saw that I had gifts in singing and performance and making people laugh. And so they utilized that as another point of pride to be like, oh, my daughter is just this extremely talented, gifted, is what they would call all the time. And I made really good grades and I studied every single day. I did my best. I had 4.0 GPA, graduated with an associate's degree. And I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because I had to perform. Like that was where my value was. If I wasn't performing well, I went to 14 different schools growing up. If I wasn't performing well in a school, my mother would move me from that school into a whole nother school. Middle of a
Yeah, I moved
semester.
around schools too. I never thought of it that way. Well, she's
That,
not here for me to ask, you know.
yeah. And it, you know, changing a child's environment is, you know, a form of abuse, especially if it's inconsiderate of the child
Right.
and it is kind of instantaneous, because kids grow up well with structure. They develop well with structure. And I'm
And
not saying,
consistency.
yes, and I'm not saying that, oh, your parents abused you because you moved to a different school. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you're a
Two
kid,
or
because
three schools in 1 year
yeah,
is outrageous. I know I found myself doing the same thing to my children. My parents did that to me, and I thought it was normal. And then finally, like I'm in my third marriage, and he's like, you know, it's not normal to move like this. Like you can't keep moving your kids to schools. And I'm like, why? Like, what's wrong with it? Because I don't have any parents or anyone. I was like 36 going on with no guidance. I didn't know what was normal or what wasn't normal. And I think I lived in a group home too. And I think a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of foster kids out there who are adults now who
mm-hmm.
have no family. They're true orphans. They don't have any guidance at all. And so it's hard. Like it's some people don't understand that. Like some people have kids, never get a break. They don't have anyone they can call. And oh well, they decided to have the child. Well, in Texas, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I live in Texas. You
Yeah,
don't have
that's
a choice. There's no
right.
choice. And
In Texas, but North Carolina, you do. North Carolina, I actually had an abortion in North Carolina in 2005. Best decision I ever made because that man is dead now. And it was like $300. And, it wasn't something I ever did again because it vacuumed the child out, the fetus out. And it was, you know, it was not horrifying, but it was something you don't want to do again. But I'm thankful that I had the right to do it.
mm-hmm.
So I want to
Yeah.
throw that in there.
Yeah, choice is extremely important. You know, if ugh, I really hate when people limit choice because they're like, oh, we want to prevent them from making a bad decision. well, you're preventing their growth. It's the same thing with any type of parenting. If you are really restrictive with anything, food, like video games, letting that child express themselves, whether it be if they are attracted to the same sex or whatever, if you are limiting that child, restrictive, you are preventing their growth. It's the same thing with any type of bad decision. If someone is not allowed to make a bad decision and learn the consequences from that bad decision, then they're going to keep doing it again. They're not going to grow. It's the same thing when you're parenting. Like, you tell your child, hey, if you do this, there's going to be a consequence from that. They do it anyway, they're going to get that consequence, and it's going to get into their brain and they're going to learn. It's so true. I was a nanny to 4 boys. I raised those children for 7 years. And no, I love them. I love them so very, very much. I love those boys. And I was kind of third parent. You know, both of their parents ran their own companies and had a joint company together. So they were always, always busy. And so the boys would come to me with whatever they needed. And oftentimes they would fight and they would make a poor decision. I'd be like, you're making a bad decision. You're going to see the consequence from it. And they really matured, not in an unhealthy way, but in a very healthy way of being able to communicate with one another, of like, especially when they're fighting, because boys fight. I remember this one time, the youngest, he was about, say, 7, and one of the middle ones was about probably 11. And the youngest was sitting on the couch, and the middle one like flopped onto the couch and hit the youngest one in the face. The youngest one said, hey, you hit me in the face. The oldest one said, I didn't mean to. Didn't say he was sorry. Said he didn't mean to. And he's like, well, that hurt me. It's like, okay, well, get over it. No. And the youngest one slaps him in the face. And I'm watching and I'm like, wow. And the oldest one comes up to me. He's like, he just slapped me in the face. Like, you slapped him first. And you didn't apologize, and you dismissed how he felt. He told you how he felt. You dismissed how he felt, and you got a consequence. I'm not saying he should have hit you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you got a consequence for being dismissive of another person's feeling. Now, I want you guys to talk to each other and have open communication about that. And now they do. Now they're little kids that said, hey, that hurt me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that hurt you. How can I help you going forward? How can I do penance, is what I would tell them to say. How can I do penance for what I've done to you? And they're so much better in their functioning as little human beings. And now I see it whenever they would have like their little friends come over, and sometimes their little friends would make fun of the siblings, and the siblings would stand up for each other because that's what I taught them. And it's so important that when you are in any type of family system, that you protect one another. And I found in toxic family systems, it's super commonplace for people to mock each other, for people to belittle one another's choices, to attack their vulnerable points. Because when you're a family, you know where their failures are, you know where their misgivings are. And I know for a fact that people that are in a toxic family system, like whether they recognize it or not, they start to chip away at each other's self-esteem. Have you ever experienced this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, you think it's normal until you see a family that doesn't treat each other that way. And then you're like, oh, wow, that's not normal.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's not. I love my dad. My dad is now deceased. He died in 2021. In 2020, he was hit by a car and suffered from a severe TBI.
Oh my God.
And I witnessed the aftermath, and I was a daddy's girl. Despite all his misgivings, he was a person. He had failures and whatever, but he was my dad. I loved him. I think of myself as little Mark Taylor. And he would tell me all the time is to protect my brothers, defend my brothers, and to show compassion. And he would tell me all the time, him and my papa, his dad, would tell me all the time that grace means undeserved love and kindness, mercy. And he would tell me all the time, show your name. Show your name. If you are being mistreated by someone, show your name. And honestly, eventually, they're going to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get a rise out of this person. This person is not accepting it. This person is not taking it at all. And it worked. It worked all the time because I got bullied all the time growing up, whether it was by my siblings or by people at school, peers at school. And I never ever once took it to heart. To their face, I was like, okay, if you feel that way, that's fine. And I just move on. And people stopped because they couldn't get a rise out of me. And I think it's the same way with your siblings, but there is that component where you have to communicate with one another. You have to have that communication and say, hey, that's not okay for you to say to me. And part of me reparenting myself as an adult, whenever I interact with my siblings, if they say a dig at me, I call them out. Like, that's unacceptable. You cannot say that about me. You cannot speak this way about me. And it's working. It really is.
It doesn't work with me. My brother like tries to talk down to me like my dad. Like, there's no respect for women on that end, you know, but it's fine. It's something I just don't even care. My family on my mom's side, I came from upper middle class, but once my mom died, my stepdad kicked me out, which I don't blame him for that. He was a wonderful man. He taught me a lot, and I was just a little brat. So, I wasn't a bad kid, but I was kind of a brat. So, who would want to take that on, you know? But there's a family dispute right now on my mom's side over land. My uncle just died, the uncle that hated me because he didn't have a living will or trust. I was named in the will by law, right? Because my mom was because he had no children, was one of his, heirs, not by naturally, because he had a lot of money and blah blah. That goes without saying because all this is going down. So the family's mad at me because I'm named in it by natural law, like as if I had something to do with it. It's always something I've done, but I've done nothing at all. And so they called me and they're like, you need to sign this paper so you'll be removed off the will. I said, I'm not signing nothing. Because I'm not going to fight y'all in court, but I'm also not going to sign it to sign away 6 figures worth of money that could be going to my daughter. Like, y'all are crazy. I will either keep the land or I'll keep the money, but I'm not signing that away just because y'all don't like me. And I know I'm going to win in court because that's how it is. If there's no will and there's people who refuse to agree to take their name off, then it goes to them, period. In Texas. So they're mad at me though. It just made me think about that. Like, it's like that my brother called me and he's like mad because I won't remove my name and how dare I? And, he's trying to talk down to me. And I'm like, I don't care. Y'all thought you were going to trick me with a piece of paper. Of course I Googled it. I'm like, I'm not signing this. This takes away my daughter's right to land, but y'all want to include every other cousin. And that's not fair to me and my daughter, who is the namesake of your mother. And when I said that to him, he just got all upset and hung up on me.
Yeah. I know.
Whatever.
It makes me think of scapegoating again. There are 6 key roles that are placed on individuals in the toxic family system. Many listening could resonate with these or with one or more, depending upon the treatment that they face in their own family dynamics. So these systems or these roles that are placed on people are the abuser, the enabler, the flying monkeys, the golden child, the scapegoat, and the peacekeeper. Have you heard of these terms?
I've heard of some of them, but not all of them. So I was interested when you sent them to me.
Yes. So usually the abuser is at the center of the toxic family system. The abuser maintains the status quo, and everyone in the family structure is at their whim. So when I think of my own family, my mother was the abuser. Like, everybody was at her whim. If something was wrong, I'm using quotations for those listening. If something was wrong in her opinion, then everybody else had to fix it, not her. She didn't ever fix it. Everyone else had to fix it. Everybody else was to blame for it. So then the next one is the enabler. The enabler has authority and allows the abuser to do whatever, allows the abuse to take place, and simply doesn't interfere. They may even ignore the abuse entirely or deny its existence. Think of my dad. Love my dad, but he allowed the abuse to occur. He allowed his children, it's okay, Gigi. He allowed his children to be abused. And it's very true. You know, when I think of that, like, come here, Gigi. She's wanting to get off the bed, but she can't. She's getting old. There you go. Okay. So when we say the enabler has authority, enablers can be other parents, could be a co-parent, could be a grandparent, could be an aunt or an uncle. It's just anyone who also has authority. The authority could be the same as the abuser. The authority could be the same as the abuser or a little bit under the abuser. The flying monkeys, when we think of flying monkeys, it's been coined from the minions of the Wicked Witch of the East from the Wizard of Oz, right? You say it's just like, fly! And they're like, and they go attack Dorothy and whatever. For those that haven't seen the Wizard of Oz, go watch the Wizard of Oz, you plebeian. Anyway, but the main abuser can inflict continuous abuse while not even being there. They just send their flying monkeys to continue the rhetoric, to maintain the status quo, and to reaffirm all of the abuser's beliefs and actions. You know, siblings can be flying monkeys. I'm just going to show like a little conflict right here. So say the mom doesn't want to go out to dinner, but there have been plans for everybody to go out to dinner. The mom is the abuser. The dad is like, okay, well, you know, we spent a lot of money, like it's already paid for. We got to go. And the mom is like, well, you're just a bad person. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm just going to my room. And so the dad's like, all right, I guess you're just going to your room. And he's like, okay, well,
that's not normal.
That's not normal. That's not normal. And the dad's like, okay, well, I guess you're going to your room now. I'm just going to go play my video games. And the children are like, what is happening? There's this conflict. So they go to one or the other parent. They go to the mom and be like, hey, what's going on? I thought we were going to dinner. The mom's like, well, your dad doesn't want to do what I want to do, so we're not going to go anywhere. And so the little kids are now being sent to their dad to be like, hey, why aren't you being nice to my mom? Like, what is happening? Like, I thought we were all going to go out to dinner. I'm all dressed up in my fancy little dress, my fancy tutu. I was ready. And the dad is like, no, it's all your mom's fault. Sends the kid back to the mom to pacify the mom. That is what is like considered flying monkeys. Like the back and forth. That is not, it's not normal. It's not normal.
That's crazy.
It's real. It's
but
a real
it seems normal though, because that's what I grew up with, and that's how my family is now. I don't like to be involved in that type of dynamic though. I really, even when I was a kid, I didn't like it. Made me very uncomfortable. I don't like gossiping now. I'm not the type. I'm such a right sayer. Like I like things to be very, very honest, very, very fair. I'm like, I tell the truth even when I was, messed up. I would tell the truth even if it hurt me. I never stole or thieved or even begged my family for money when I was addicted to drugs. So That's why I say I'm like one of those people. It's just very strange. It never makes sense. I don't have a double habit or anything. I'm very much like,
Consistent. You're consistent.
This is a very weird thing. But
Yes.
yeah, so I don't know. Like it's crazy. Like I hated being around that. I don't like the gossiping. I don't like talking about people. And I feel like that's all my family does. And I feel like that's what every family does. And it makes me uncomfortable.
So the next one is the golden child, the one that can do no wrong, the pride and joy of the family, whether or not they deserve it. Okay, whether or not they earned it, whatever, they don't deserve it. Usually, they're
They're usually
usually
the biggest liars in that family.
yes, they're placed above the other children if there are any. And the golden child can also be in like the cousins, like the extended
Absolutely.
family could also be like the cousin that gets straight A's but secretly has like some form of addiction, like a gambling addiction or whatever, and is spending everybody's money. But oh no, we love this child, and
Right.
it's a
I
very real
was
thing.
I was the golden child growing up before my mother died. My grandmother loved me. I feel like more I was her favorite over everybody because I would sew with her. I love black and white movies and I love music from the 30s and 40s as well. I love to dance to it. And I love the clothes. So we had that in common. And I was her favorite. And then when my mom died, of course, she turned her back on me. And I think that hurt her a lot. She was the first one to come back in touch with me. But obviously I'm not the golden child anymore. I think it's everyone but me, and that's okay. I've come to terms with it now. But how about you? Were you ever the golden child?
Only if I got a solo in choir, only if I got good grades, only if I was in a performance. Now, I am a professional, vocalist. I am a professional actor. I have been
Awesome.
paid. I have been paid for all of my work. I was also I'm trying to get back into it again, but when I was in my early teens, I was a professional voice actor and I was in video games. I had a pseudonym and I'm not going to tell anybody what my pseudonym was, but I was in video games and I really enjoyed it. And it was always twisted because my mother would be like, oh, she gets all of her talent from me, all of this. And so she would brag about it to her friends. But if I ever did anything that she didn't like, she was very much that lady that posts everything on Facebook. But if I ever did anything that she didn't like, she would instantly delete that post of praise, she would call it, that post of praise on Facebook.
Oh wow. Hearing things like that and like dealing with my husband's mother, who's she can't stand me because we're not married in the Catholic Church. She doesn't acknowledge our marriage and she's always hated me. I know his MPD had a lot to do with it, because he'll run and try to um
Sabotage.
yeah, like but just in case, how MPD makes you like
Yeah.
the person want to go ahead and set it up just in case. But now we've been together 3 years and we're married, so but she as a mother I get it, but also at the same time it's like you know
Yeah. Understand. So the last role, or the last two roles, are the scapegoat and the peacekeeper. So the scapegoat can never do anything right, no matter what it is. Nothing they do is good enough, and they are frequently blamed for any perceived mistake or failure, especially if they're done by another family member.
yeah.
Dude, I think I was mostly scapegoated. I don't know why my voice is so bad today, but I was mostly scapegoated growing up. If my brothers didn't do their chores, I was blamed for not doing their chores. Like they were like, well, if this is a Bible verse, but my mother would tell this to me all the time as a way to gaslight me. But the Bible verse goes, if you see something that should be done and do not do it, it's a sin. And so she would use that against me all the time. If, say, we had a chore chart and one of my brothers was supposed to do the dishes that day, and I get home from school and the dishes are not done, and then my mother and father get home from work and the dishes are not done, my brothers would not get blamed. I would get blamed because I'm the oldest and I should know better.
And you're the female.
Mm-hmm. And there are dirty dishes. Those dirty dishes need to get cleaned. And my mother was never going to do it. Like, I really cannot recall her ever doing chores. And if she ever did some modicum of a chore, she would always bloviate about it. Like, oh, look what I did. I slave away for this family. I'm so not appreciated. Look, I cleaned this. Oh, it took me hours. And oh, you guys just don't appreciate my work.
That's what my 12-year-old does.
It's really immature, right? It's like, what? Okay.
Talking about dishes, that's her chore, is washing the dishes. And I do all the laundry. And of course, I'm a clean freak. So I'm like, I wake up at 5 and 6 in the morning. I wake up and start cleaning the house. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, everything's always got to be perfectly in order. And then I like it that way. I like the house clean. But her job is to get her dirty clothes out of her room and wash the dishes. Mm-hmm. Fold the clothes. Sometimes she and my husband fold the clothes together. But she's like that. Oh gosh.
Yeah. And I can understand it if it's a 12-year-old, but a grown woman in her late 50s.
That's terrible.
It's ridiculous. And she would always want praise from us kids for doing the bare minimum. Is she medicated? No, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so.
Terrible.
And then the last one, the peacekeeper. The peacekeeper enables poor behavior by not taking a side, right? They try to mediate. They try to hold the toxic family together. They're like the glue, the proverbial glue. They're often mediators, and they can also be victimized by the abuser for trying to get into the middle. Mm-hmm. And that was also me all the time. So I'm now gonna go to my extended family. My dad's side of the family is from Jamaica. My birth certificate says Caucasian Jamaican, which is funny, but my family is extremely, extremely mixed race. At least my dad's side of the family. My mom's side of the family is Scottish, Irish, German, white. Dad's side of the family, Jamaican. So Jamaica's like Nigerian, Benin, Togo, a lot of Chinese people. And so it's very mixed. They call it mulatto, like very, very mixed. And so people in my family, we all have like similar facial features, but everyone has different skin tone, which is kind of iconic. I'm the lightest of my entire family. I'm legitimately the lightest. It is great. But growing up, my cousins and I have like 12 cousins. My cousins and I, we would spend the summer at my Mimi and Papa's house. And my Papa was a very strict Jamaican man. He was very strict. He sat at the table and he had his spoon in his hand so he could smack you if you did anything wrong. And so I remember we were all sitting at the table and nobody is allowed to get up until everyone finishes their food. Which sucks because we were all kids and kids can't always finish their food. But he would always use, the ploy of, oh, there are starving people back in home country. There's starving people back in Jamaica. Yes. He was like, there's starving people that would want your food and you need to eat it right now. Or you don't eat your food. Was. Yes.
Yeah. To the point of it being abusive.
Yes, it is abuse. Yeah. It is abuse to force anybody to eat more than their fill. That's right. Abuse. And so I remember one of my male cousins, he was full and he didn't want to eat anymore. He's like, Papa, I'm full. I can't eat anymore. I think he was 12. He's like, Papa, I'm full. And we were not allowed to get up. We like sat there for like 30 minutes until our Mimi was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm getting up. Like everybody can get up. And he's like, everybody can get up except for you, to my cousin. Wouldn't let him get up. And they sat at the table for 3 hours. And I remember going back and forth to the table being like, can he please get up? please, Papa, can he please get up? He needs to go to the bathroom. He's told me he needs to. He's like, stop. And like, he would smack me every time I came back up to the table to be like, hey, can this, I'm not going to say his name, but can this cousin please get up? Can we allow him to get up? He's like, no. And I really feel so bad for my cousin because he was always, scapegoated. Of all of our cousins, he was always in trouble. And I can't even think of a time he did anything to warrant him being in trouble. Like, he was always in trouble. Yeah. And it makes me so upset because Papa, my Papa has died. It has been now a year anniversary of his death as of recording. And 3 years ago, he started having strokes. And so his whole personality changed. He was so nice. And so my partner only knew Papa as a nice man. Papa was not always a very nice man.
Right.
Very, very strict, very controlling, wouldn't let my Mimi leave the house without his permission. And so my Papa was extremely strict. And, all of the cousins' significant others never knew Papa until he was super nice, chill, stroked out Papa. And I think of the way our Papa treated us and would yell at us and go on these rants for hours, wouldn't let us leave the table, would have these discussions. I have videos of him, would have these discussions with a stick in his hand. And that stick was always in his hand so he could whack us like from across the table if we ever did anything that he didn't like anything. Right. And I remember one conversation as I think I was in middle school and I went to an all-girls school, and my Papa went on this rant of how, they were going to make me gay and a bunch of other ridiculous, whatever, conservative nonsense. And I tried to defend myself. And then he kind of made all of my cousins start to attack me for my own beliefs. And it's emotional family violence.
Oh, yeah.
Family emotional violence is real. Research supports the idea that certain levels of aggression is normal in any family life. But these levels are higher levels are usually culturally approved. For example, in Western cultures, many healthy families and couples may lose their tempers and say hurtful things to each other on occasion. And I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm talking about actively attacking another person just to attack them, just because you don't like their beliefs, you don't like what they have to say. And these harmful tactics combined with conflict avoidance, like gossiping, criticism, pitting, spitting, splitting, can become consistent ways of resolving problems in the toxic family. Psychological bullying is quite harmful. It's super harmful to any family member, and it's super harmful to children, to the way that they develop. It can manifest in depression, anxiety, feelings of helplessness, post-traumatic stress disorder, and many other negative symptoms in the family dynamic. Have you ever experienced family emotional violence?
Well, yeah. I mean, we discussed before that I thought all that was normal. But, as I said, I always hated it and stayed away from it. Family events, even as a child, just because it made me uncomfortable. My daughter's having a rough day today, so she's kind of been trying to insert herself in whatever's going on. She's autistic, so
that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't like it when my attention's away from her.
I understand.
The feelings, Will, I see on your back wall. I printed one of those out, but for the kids version, because since she was really small, I always had to talk to her about her feelings. She didn't talk till she was 3.5. So she was very aggressive, but sweet, but aggressive. I mean, imagine not being able to tell people how you feel. And so she couldn't even say mama until she was 3.5. But we really do have to work with her on like her feeling where she was doing really great and then she regressed through puberty.
Yeah.
So through puberty, I'm having a lot of regression with her. And apparently that's normal with autism. Um, a regression through regression through communication, regression through like memory and focus because of hormones. I mean, it affects everybody. So you're young still. You just really take advantage of your wonderful hormones because when you're my age, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to take all these vitamins for this.
Yeah. I mean, are you okay with including the autism thing on the podcast?
If you think it's imperative, then that's fine.
Okay. I'm just gonna like confirm whether you want to include that or not. But I think, I do have hypothyroidism. I was diagnosed at 8 years old. And for those of you listening that don't know what hypothyroidism is, it's your thyroid gland is the gland in your neck that secretes different hormones that control your body functions. Your pituitary gland, which is in the back of your head, sends signals to your thyroid gland, and your thyroid gland sends it to the rest of your body. My thyroid gland doesn't work. It could literally be removed, because it doesn't do anything.
So you do have hormone issues. So girl, it's awful.
Yeah. Yes. And I've had them my entire life. Like my weight has gone drastically up and down my entire life. It's kind of traumatic, honestly, because I normally, my doctor says my normal weight is probably 175. I'm 220 pounds right now. And
I've been there.
Yeah, I do not eat a lot. I do not eat a lot. I don't eat enough to warrant that. And I do exercise and I do move my body. And it's very frustrating. And when I was in competitive dance, I was like, at my littlest was like 120. I was very, very skinny. And then suddenly my weight would like shoot up and down, and like I'd split my tights and wouldn't fit into my leotards, and it was very
energy
frustrating.
level drops out of nowhere.
Yes. It was very
And as you
frustrating.
get older, it affects your skin. I've been having so many skin problems out of nowhere because, when you get older, you start to lose your elasticity, your moisture, all that. And it happens about 35. So then your skin is breaking out and, you just have all these other problems. And yeah, I'm so sorry you're going through that. I've had the issue that I didn't even know for my whole life, hair on my face, and I laser it, and it still doesn't all go away. But I have tons of hair on my head, which is not typical. But now that I'm at the age that I'm at, my hair has started to thin all through here because of it. So I started taking tons of vitamins. I take liquid vitamins every day, and the liquid you absorb 94% of it. And I've already seen a difference in my period. There was no clots. It was regular. Sorry to be so explicit, but some women really are suffering with this and don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I'm taking zinc, liquid vitamin C, and bromelain, which is pineapple extract. And I take 3 droppers full of zinc. It's organic. 2 droppers full of 2,000 milligrams vitamin C, because 2 droppers is 2,000 milligrams. And I take 2 full droppers of bromelain extract. And they're all supposed to be good for your blood, and your bromelain is for your stomach. So I have stomach problems because of my hormones. I'm sure you do too. Yeah, so bromelain's great for that, and I'm telling you, I've seen a major difference in just a week of it.
Nice. That's really helpful information. Yeah. I've had really bad hormone problems my entire life, and it's caused me to have miscarriages, and I've had doctors since I was really little tell me that I may not be able to have children because of, how drastically my hormones will just change, that I may be able to conceive, but I may not be able to carry. And I've come to terms with that. It's like, okay, if I want to have children, I can adopt. But I know for a lot of people, the whole idea that, oh, I can't have children on my own, it feels like a failure for a lot of people.
Yeah, because fertility is so attached to womanhood and men. Okay, there's a song that I love by Paris Paloma called Labor. Have you heard that song?
Yes.
Okay. So that pretty much defines how women and men, like we have to do all these things once we're married or at any point to fulfill the man's picket fence dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's often women's dream too. But is it our dream, or is it this patriarchal idea, that ideology that's been forced upon us since birth for
Mm-hmm.
generations, right? Like that's our job, but it's not our job, to raise a child.
Yes.
It takes two people to raise one child, and if there's not two people involved, then it's no longer your job. So you got to consider that. Now that I'm older, I wish I considered that before I had children. My daughter's dad is dead, so he and I got along fine, but that's not something I have to consider with him. He just passed away from cancer, from being a drug addict. But yeah, so it's like women have all this jobs that we have to do, all this labor, all this work that we're
Mm-hmm.
expected to do. We're expected to work a 40-hour job, or we're bums and we're living off of a man. But we're expected to come home and clean the house and cook dinner because house needs to be clean. House is a mess. On any of your videos on social media, you're a crappy mom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
I'm a clean freak. I don't worry about that, but I do worry about that. Like
Yeah.
you can't do anything right as a woman ever. Nothing we do is right. But a
Yeah.
man, if he messes up, oh well, at least he's there with the kids.
Yeah. It's that strange dichotomy of, this, and I face it all the time because that's literally how I was very raised. I was, from the moment I could, talk and walk and do anything, I was taught to start cleaning up after myself, which isn't a bad thing to be taught to clean
No.
up after myself. But then I was forced to start cleaning up after other people.
And you had the reinforcement of that's a woman's job. That's what women do. Yeah, and I find myself doing the same to my daughter. And I've over the years, and then over this past year, I've changed that self-talk into, this is what you do after yourself. This has nothing to do with being a woman. This is your job for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And
break the cycle.
Yes, and you're doing such a great job of breaking the cycle. I really do believe
Try it.
I really do believe it. I do
Thank
believe
you.
that you're doing a great job. And, especially with parenting a daughter when you're a mother, and parenting a daughter and trying desperately to break that toxic family cycle, that toxic femininity is what I like to think of it as. Like, a woman's role is to serve. That's not a role. What I really want to do is, whenever I have daughters, because I've raised boys. That's all I've raised is boys, and I've done my best to teach them to be respectful to other people, especially respectful to girls, and ask before you do something. Like, if you want to give someone a hug, ask first. If you want to do this or that, if you want to hang out with a person, ask first.
Right.
Like, reinforce consent. But I think whenever I have a daughter, and I really desperately do want to have a daughter, is to
It's such a blessing.
Yes, is to teach my daughter that her value is just inherent. Her value is not in what she does, what she can accomplish, like what she does for other people, how she serves. Like, no, your value is just in you being you.
I ask her, are you proud of yourself? Not, oh, I'm so proud of you. And I am. And she knows that I am. But also, are you proud of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what matters. And also, I want to say something real quick. You and I have experienced conditional love in our family units. And conditional love, you bring up Bible verses and whatnot. Both of us grew up in a Christian household. My mother killed herself, but she was the choir director at the First Baptist Church and a real estate agent, a broker. So that was always reinforced to me. Christ love, be Christ-like. And Christ is always shown to have unconditional love. And these people in our lives who were telling us to be Christ-like and regurgitating Bible verses. Now, I still consider myself a Christian, okay? But I'm saying I don't consider myself religious. And so here's the thing. They're saying, okay, well, you need to be Christ-like, and Christ's example is unconditional love. He loves us no matter what we do, right? And he forgives us. You just say this one little verse and you're forgiven, and you continue to be just like Christ. But I'm not. My love has conditions. You have to do these certain things, or I don't love you. If you don't do these certain things, I will disown you. And that's what I grew up with. It sounds like you grew up with that. And that's not what true love is. God defines love in the Bible in 1 Corinthians 13, and love is not conditional. So when in my household, I've made tons of mistakes parenting, but over the past few years, I've been trying to rectify that and change, how I see things. My household love is not conditional. My daughter knows that even when she's not being the best behavior, or, having the best behavior, making the right choices, I still love her. She's still loved. She knows that even when she's being disobedient, I have to punish her because she's going through that right now. She's having to rake the yard because she was looking at things on the internet she wasn't supposed to. And so she's raking the yard. But she knows that when I got onto her for it, I gave her a hug after it. Because I still love you, even though you made really bad choices, and it's just, hey, I did the same bad choices when I was 12, but my parents didn't care about me enough to look into it. And if they found anything, they were, you're so evil, you're so bad, I can't believe you, instead of, oh, I understand that's normal for that age. But since you've got so much extra energy, go rake the yard.
Yes.
Get out there and go rake the yard. Don't be on the internet doing bad stuff. Go rake the yard, and you'll be too tired to go do that.
Yes. According to Catherine Fabrizio, who is a licensed professional counselor, and she also specializes in working with daughters of toxic mothers, she offers a general rule of thumb. If you end up feeling bad about yourself after most encounters with a family member, there's probably a good reason for that, and you should look into it.
I agree.
When I think of that, because I really love Catherine, I read a lot of her stuff, especially on narcissistic mothers, daughters of narcissistic mothers, because that's what I have. I have a narcissistic mother. She talks about, it is not your fault for the way other people treat you.
Right.
It's not your fault. Like, if you see that there's no correlation between how you act and how they're treating you, say you're doing everything right, you are kind, you are compassionate, you are considerate, you are understanding, you are loving, and people are treating you with disrespect, with hate, without love, then people like that don't need to have any impact in your life, and people like that can be cut out of your life, because if it's kind of reinforcing that idea of, like, if you constantly have this person in your life that's talking shit on you, talking horribly about you, you're going to start to believe that about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But if you start to, like, recognize that's not right, that's not me, like, you're saying all these horrible things about me that are not true, that are not valid, that have no, like, grasp of reality, there's nothing that you're saying is correct about me. If you're like, my siblings will tell me sometimes that I'm lazy. I've never been lazy a day in my life. My mother recently, my goodness. So I have been living outside of my family home since I was 18, went off to college. And when my dad was dying, my mom yelled at me to come home and be in the hospice with my dad. And I had to, I couldn't pay my rent. I had to pay $1,800 to get out of my lease and, live on the couch while my dad was dying, because she wouldn't give me a room. She has 4 bedrooms in her house. She wouldn't give me a room. And I slept on the couch, watched my dad die. And once he passed away, she started being really, really brutally horrible to me, just horrible. And so I started sleeping in my car, and then started sleeping on couches. And then eventually I got an apartment with my partner. But recently she texted me and my siblings that she needed proof that we did not live with her for her insurance, so that because she wanted to get a new insurance and whatever. She doesn't need proof that we don't live with her to not pay for us to be on her insurance, but I digress. I sent her the information that she required. I just sent her proof that I have insurance for my car, and the day she asked, and my little brother didn't send anything. And I think he sent something on his own of something, but it apparently wasn't enough information for her. And so she called us both the most self-centered, inconsiderate, evil people in the entire world. And I took a step back. I blocked her on everything again. I'm never going to
I
speak
would
to
have
her
too.
again. I'm never going to speak to her again because I gave her what she required. Never going to
It's
speak.
never enough though for people like that. It's never enough. My
It's
husband's mother's that way. I've apologized to her for however I've offended her. And I love her from a distance because I don't hate anybody. Anybody has beef with me, they're beefing by themselves because I don't have a problem.
mm-hmm.
I'm so
Yes.
sorry you're going through that. I just
Yeah.
hate it for you because you have a mom, which I can be so jealous of, not in a bad way, but like
Mm-hmm.
in such a love you from a distance way, yet it's not even a good relationship. It's better you would be like me, where you don't have one at all, because
Yeah.
you wouldn't be dealing with that constant scab ripping off.
Yes, that's such a good analogy because that's what it is. She always tries to crawl back into our life, and I say our, being Joey and I's life, of being like, "Oh, I love you so much, I'll do it." Like she has never apologized, but she's like,
Manipulative.
yeah, super manipulative. And so she called me self-centered, which I've never once been in my entire life, and I had
To
to
get a
like,
reaction out of
yeah,
you.
yes, because
That's what narcissists do. They want a reaction. They'll say, if they don't get a reaction this way, they'll do something else to get a reaction. And they'll do something else to get a reaction. It's like,
yeah.
with my ex, the father of my son, they're still trying to get a reaction out of me. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
You have my son. What do you want?
Yeah, it's
And it's like your mom, she's your mom. I hate you're going through that. But my husband's mom is the same way. And it's
mm-hmm.
just, and he can be the same way too. It's, until he started his narcissistic personality disorder classes at the VA, he
Mm-hmm.
was honestly the same way with
Mm-hmm.
me. And it was hard. It was really hard for me to unpack all that. But my psychedelic therapy really helped me. Have you tried that?
I have not done psychedelic therapy. You're talking about ketamine therapy?
Yes,
Yeah. I have not
that's what I
done,
tried.
yeah, I have not done any ketamine therapy though. I would consider it. Um I've been diagnosed with CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I have non-epileptic seizures because of it. And I have done EMDR, which is eye movement reprocessing therapy. I've
How'd
done
that
some of
work?
that. It helped a lot. But it's not sufficient because I didn't get to have multiple sessions. I only got to have one.
Well,
Um
plus you keep experiencing it with your mom, so I'm wondering how EMDR would even actually
yeah.
help with that,
Yeah. Yeah. And another level to the ridiculousness with my mom, because I said I blocked her, right? With the whole flying monkeys thing, it's very true for my siblings. Because apparently 2 weekends ago, my mother, because my both of my brothers go to Texas Tech currently, and my
Okay.
mother went up to Texas Tech, which is the college I used to go to. My mother went up to Texas Tech, and apparently she's engaged now to a man she started dating a month after my dad died, who is 30 years old, so he's only 10 years older than me, less than 10 years older than me, and over 25 years younger than her. And apparently they're
It ain't gonna
engaged.
work. It ain't gonna work. He's using her for money.
Yeah, he's definitely
That'll
using
work.
her. But she showed up to Lubbock with my siblings and their girlfriends, and she took them to a fancy restaurant. She had this, my brother described it as like this giant gaudy ring on her. And my oldest, he's not older than me, but he's the oldest brother. He never mentioned the ring to her. She kept trying to flash it, kept trying to do everything in her power to try to get him to notice
Draw
it.
attention.
Yeah. And she kept trying to, because he wouldn't do what she wanted, she kept trying to argue with him over just nothing, literally nothing. She just kept trying to argue with him, and then kept trying to get my youngest brother in between and say, isn't your brother just the worst? Isn't he just like horrible, blah, 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 blah. My brothers wouldn't say anything to her. And then she got up and left them with a giant check. She got her fiance or whatever to pick her up, and they had to ask my uncles to pay for the food because they didn't have any money, right?
That's how my husband's mother is, exactly like that. I've never experienced, my mother was nothing like that. I'll be honest. My mother was very like a peacemaker. So I'd never experienced that until my current husband's mother. And I was just like, wow. And then she's like devout Catholic. So it was very confusing to me to be devout and be like, because my mother wasn't that way at all. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And so my brothers called me, and apparently the youngest one had known for a few weeks that she was engaged, but she threatened him, said she wouldn't pay for his college if he told. So my brothers are like, yeah, I just want to let you know that apparently mom is engaged. And my brother mentioned to me, he was like, well, I knew that you are going to get engaged either this year, the end of this year, or the beginning of next year, which I already knew. He was like, so I feel like she's trying to beat you to the punch and be like, oh, I got engaged before my daughter, and just
That's
whatever.
so shady.
Yeah. And he's like, she's extremely delusional because what it seems like is she's trying to get all this attention and be better than you, which is weird. And also, does she think that she's going to go wedding dress shopping for her and her daughter's wedding dresses together and all this whatever? And I have a lot of really, really good friends, but they live very far away. all of my like good friends are far from me, which sucks. But my best friend Anna and I were talking last night. She's like, dude, your mom is not allowed at your wedding. I'm putting my foot down. Like, she's years. She's known me for so many years. And she's like, babe, I'm putting my foot down. I'm going to run interference. I'm going to have a little like water guns full of red wine. If she ever shows up to the wedding, I'm going to spray the shit out of her. And she's like, she's not coming to your wedding because this is your day. Like, I don't care. She's your mother. She's not a mother to you. She's never been a mother to you. And I'm so thankful.
Because she's going to try to ruin it and make it about herself.
Definitely. And I'm so thankful to people like Catherine who have these amazing, articles over daughters of narcissists and how you can reparent yourself and how you can start to heal on your own, of being like, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this mistreatment. And I'm not going to continue the cycle. I'm not going to mistreat myself. I'm not going to mistreat others. And, my own routine has really changed. My own routine is super adapted now to be like, okay, what do I need? What do I need right now? If I am feeling dysregulated in any way, shape, or form, what do I need? What do I want? And I had to have a conversation with my partner over this because I felt so broken up that, I didn't even know that my mother was engaged, first of all. I despise the man that she is engaged or dating because he has really bad, intentions in my mind. I know it for a fact. I've met him a handful of times. He's never once tried to talk to me, never once tried to interact with me or my siblings. And she decides to get married to a man that's so much younger than her. And she just wants to be center attention. And, me getting engaged is a really big deal for me. And I feel like my engagement.
I bet she tries to wear a white dress too.
Yeah, probably. Well, she's never gonna know where we're gonna get married. Like I'm never gonna broadcast it anywhere, because I just had to talk with my partner and be like, I feel so distressed. I don't want to get engaged this year. And he's like, I need you to think about that for a little bit. I need you to think about that because you are in this heightened sense of fear and frustration and anger. But our engagement is not about your mom.
Right.
What we're going to do going forward has nothing to do with your mother. I need you to take a moment and talk to yourself, talk to your friends, and start to think about this, really think about it. And I thought about it. I was like, you're right. Like, propose to me whenever you want. Because it's like, it's another way of her trying to steal my joy,
right.
Of her being like, it's honestly sabotage. And I'm not going to let her sabotage me. I'm not going to let it happen. Not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen anymore. If she, like, her life is her life. I have to keep telling myself, her life is her life. She clearly doesn't want me to be a part of it. The way that she is, I do not want her in my life. And so it's just going to have to be separate. If we get engaged in the same year, oh, well, I know that my marriage is going to last because I've put steps in place to make sure that it does. We both go to therapy individually. We both have like couples counseling. We have our own separate lives and our lives together. And
exactly. But you're best friends, and then that works.
Yes. And I'm proud of myself because, you know, I had a lot of trauma and I dated a lot of really bad people. I did.
Yeah. But you're not married 3 times.
I'm glad. I'm glad I'm not married 3 times. I'm glad that you have the person that you have now and you're both growing individually and you're going together. Yeah. And I'm glad that because it sounds like you are very loved. That's what it sounds like. That this person loves you so much to take the steps and recognize that, hey, I'm doing this incorrectly. I want to change. I want to be better. And that's beautiful. And I'm so happy for you because that's a lot. That takes a lot, especially if he does have narcissistic personality disorder and he's going to classes to change that, like to work on himself. That is beautiful. That is so beautiful.
I think so too.
It's awesome because, you know, NPD is so, it's so, like, anybody will use the insult, oh, you're a narcissist. No, narcissistic personality disorder is a real thing. It's
like, it's a serious thing. Yeah, I'm gonna unblur my background for a little bit. I think it looked bad.
Yeah, it is a really serious thing. It is so, it's real. Having a narcissistic personality disorder is real and it's super harmful to them and to other people. Like, anybody can have some narcissistic traits, right? But having narcissistic personality disorder is a severe insecurity. It's a deep-rooted insecurity because you don't have correct attachment styles to yourself, to others, to the world. And anybody can change. Anybody can get better. Anybody can grow. Anybody can mature. It just takes that recognition of, I don't like the way that I am right now. I don't like the way that I'm treating other people. I don't like the way I'm treating myself. What are the steps I can take to change that? And showing yourself so much love and compassion too.
And a man that, you know, puts forth effort to change, it's always about a woman making changes. Well, women are always evolving and changing, and men are pretty much the same from the time they're like 16. They're like, if they're into Dragon Ball Z at 16, they're into Dragon Ball Z for the rest of their lives. If they're into like college football at 16 and they have a sport that's what they're into for like the rest of their lives. Okay. So women, though, if we're into something at 16, we're not going to be into it at 25 probably, but we'll be back into it at 35. You know, life's not linear, you know, for women especially. We're just all over the place and constantly moving, and you know, so for men it's just like they're just the same.
And a man that wants to change is
it makes a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah, women are always changing. so for people to say, well, is a woman changing? Of course she's changing. She's always trying to change, you know.
Mm-hmm.
No, I know narcissism affects women just as bad, but unfortunately, you know, if a woman doesn't want to change and that's her natural behavior to change, it's just sad that she's fighting against what nature is giving to her, because that is what we're supposed to do as women, to change, you know, from the maiden, you know, to what was the next one? It's
Maiden,
maiden
mother.
and then crown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're supposed to be, even if we're not mother in terms of fertility, having children, but you know, you change into that
Mm-hmm.
nurturing, just want to take care of everybody. You know, you're no longer the, oh, look at me, kind of like,
Mm.
you grow out of that into, you know, the nurturer, and just want to be homely and all that. Every woman goes through that, but when you fight that and you fight growing into the crone, I think that's what really bothers women a lot, is the aging process. And so
Mm.
they take that out, especially women with mothers with daughters who don't really know how to cope with it. They'll take it out on their daughters because, oh my gosh, she's more beautiful than me. The attention's not on me anymore. You know, she can't wear tight clothes because that's what I do. She can't be more beautiful because that's me. You
Mm.
know, I don't know if you dealt with that, but I did deal
Yeah.
with that a little bit with my mom.
Yeah, I dealt with that my entire childhood. My goodness. I resonate so hard. You gave me chills with maiden, mother, crone, because even if you are not a mother in the sense of birthing children, you can still be a mother to other people. You can still be a
Absolutely.
motherly figure to other people. I know for a fact that I've been a motherly figure to a lot of little boys. I know for a fact I've been a motherly figure to
To
myself.
your animals as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Animals have feelings and emotions. And we just rescued a kitten that was dying. Like it just ran out and there fleas all over its eyes, and just terrible. And it was funny because I've been battling this eye thing long before we got the cat. And we have
Mm-hmm.
a cat that's battling an eye thing. And I'm like, oh, my little buddy, like we're both having eye problems. You know, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you know, I treat everything. Earlier, I meant to bring this up. Children are human beings. They're not like a possession. They have thoughts and they have feelings. And then the autistic child, when they don't speak or communicate, when they get upset or overly excited, you think that's a human being. This is a human being, and they have thoughts and feelings, and they can't express that. And you learn that a lot faster with an autistic child because you have to help them express that. And so you're like, this is not my possession. This is not my child. This is my human being who
Mm-hmm.
I care for a few years. I get the joy of sharing life with. And then that human being continues their growth without me. And I just get to, you know, help and nudge along whenever they ask. And also my husband, he's a human being, right? He has feelings and emotions and trauma and issues, just like I'm a human being and you're a human being. And trans people, they're human beings. And everyone's a human being. People are human beings, and animals are beings that also feel emotion. So when you begin to think of, it almost brings tears to my eyes when you begin to think of life like that,
Mm-hmm.
your compassion and your empathy and your respect for others, even children. It's like, because you say even children, even women, but why is it even when we're all human beings? We're
Mm-hmm.
born with thoughts and emotions before we can even speak.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Mm.
Chills. Oh my goodness. But yes, I mean, ugh, I really do think I was objectified, not in a sexual way, but as a child, I was very objectified. Like I was, you know,
And on
my
display.
yeah, on display. My hair always had to be perfect. I think that's also part of the reason why I rebelled so hard once I left my family home. I always wanted to dye my hair, but I think it's also why like growing up,
Me too.
I never got haircuts growing up. I had
Oh,
hair all the way down to past my butt. I have very curly hair. You pull a curl, it was past my butt. And when I was 15 years old, I was raped at church. And, you know, I don't really like to talk about it because I haven't fully processed it. But I had really, really long hair. And I remember he grabbed my hair and I was like, I need to cut it off. I need to cut it off. And I did. And that was the first ever big haircut because I had like trims, but I never had a haircut. And I cut it to here and I felt like myself. I was like, whoa, like I feel like myself. And then my mother was like, you never do that again. Never cut your hair again. Don't ever do that again. I hate it short, like whatever. And so I went off to college and I had really long hair by the time I was back at college. So it's like almost 5 years later, I was at college and I had really long hair. And I was like, I feel so depressed and sad. And then my dad died and I was like, I need to cut it. I need to cut it off. And I cut it off and I felt so good again. And now I keep it so short and I feel like myself. This is like something I can control. This is a part of my body that I can control. And my mother growing up was so against me ever changing my hair. She was like, your hair is your glory. Your hair is your glory. You're going to be like Samson and
Are you
lose all your
Pentecostal?
powers. I have
Are you
no idea.
Pentecostal?
I don't know. My mother probably was. My mother was like Catholic, then Baptist, then something. Her parents were missionaries.
I do the same thing. I've changed my path a billion times, I think. But Pentecostals don't cut their hair and they wear the long skirts and they, believe in speaking in tongues and all that. And that sounds
yes, she does believe that. So probably yeah.
Yeah, they believe in like Acts 2:38 as a foundational verse of their denomination. But and I think at one time I've claimed to be Pentecostal, Catholic, Baptist. So, I mean, I think it's to have the chase the true path. I think towards your enlightenment, you do kind of have to go through that sometimes.
Yes.
I don't judge anyone's path. If you have one straight path, that's great. You take 20 paths, I don't care. Just as long as you reach your path, because to being grounded and mindfulness, I think that's all. That's what's helped me the most is mindfulness, first of all.
Yes. And so I keep my hair short and I like to dye it and I like to make it weird, wacky colors because it brings me so much joy and it's a way for me to express myself that I was never able to do. I mean, growing up, we went to First Baptist Church of Dallas and my papa was a deacon. So we always had to look prim and proper. And my brothers had to be in suits and I had to be in dresses and I despised it. And it was so frustrating because I was a prop for my mom. I was something she could show off to. I can't even say her friends because, she didn't really have friends. She had people she spoke to. It's weird because she would say, oh, you're my best friend. And then she'd be like, I hate this person so much as soon as she got home. So I could never say that she had friends, but I was very much prop. I wasn't a human. I don't think I'll ever be like a human being to my mother because, on her Facebook, she'll post like wife, mom, child of God. And she uses us children as props, as like, oh, my lovely little whatever did this today. And then if she doesn't get enough comments, she'll delete the post and post something else. Like it's always for validation. And I love what you said about like mother maiden crone, like going back to what you said, like, yes, my mother despised me once I started hitting puberty because growing up, she was a very obese woman, very obese. She had a lot of eating disorders. I'm pretty sure she had binge eating disorder, but we never saw her eat. Like I can't recall a time I really saw her eat, but she had a giant fridge in her room that was always fully stocked with whatever. And our fridge hardly ever had food. Like the family fridge hardly ever had food. The pantry hardly ever had food. But her pantry, her food, she always would hide food in her room. Like she would buy herself snacks and goodies. And like us kids would be starving. And I'm not kidding on that. Like my brothers will try to refute it, but I'm like, no, we would walk 2 miles to Mimi and Papa's house to get food. Like we had most of our meals at Mimi and Papa's house. Like it's a real thing. She did not feed us. I remember when I went off to college, my youngest brother would call me and text me and ask me to send food, like DoorDash him some food. He would ask me for money for food. because she wasn't feeding him. And she gave me an eating disorder. She gave me an eating disorder growing up because she would always go on these fad diets and she would make me go on them with her.
Yeah,
Every
my mom would too.
every single time. She did
I'm
Slim
so
for Life.
sorry.
She did Weight Watchers. She did like this juice cleanse. I remember being like 14, 15 years old and I was a stick. Like I could fit my hand around my upper arm, like all the way
Right.
around. I was so little and I was so, and she would be like, "Oh, you look so perfect." Like, I wish I could be as skinny as that. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm starving. And like she would always despise because I have hypothyroidism. And she'd like, whenever my weight would fluctuate, she'd be like, "Well, you're not working hard enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're not doing enough to lose weight." And now once my dad was hit by the car, she started like a GoFundMe for, paying for his stuff. But she used all that money to get plastic surgery. And now she's super, super skinny. And before the accident happened, she and my dad, because they were both obese, like really bad, they both got gastric bypass surgery. So they could only eat 8 ounces of food, which also is a form of starvation.
Right.
And like she
It can
wouldn't,
only be liquid too, I think.
yeah. And so she did that. And then once when my dad was like in the hospital, she went and got plastic surgery. And, now she's super skinny and whatever, always has her nails done, always has eyelash extensions. Like while my dad was dying and I wasn't allowed to visit him because she was the only one allowed to visit him because of COVID policy. So it's like all these weird, horrible things. And I know now it's a point of pride for her that she's skinnier than me. I know for a fact that it's a point of pride for her that she thinks she looks better than I do. And, from my own experiences, I'm like, okay, I really don't care. But what irks me is that all these people on Facebook will just send her so much praise and so much, just feed her ego of like, "Oh, you look so great. Oh, you're doing so well. Oh, Mark is so proud of you in heaven," while she has disowned all of her children. Once the accident happened, like when 2020, like a week after the accident, she took all three of us children off her phone plan, her car insurance, and her health insurance. Like immediately took us off. And so I had to figure that out for my siblings and myself to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? What are we supposed to do? She took us off her iCloud too. Do you know like the extent of like taking someone off your iCloud? Like she took all of us off her iCloud. So I had to buy my own iCloud plan so I didn't lose all of my stuff. So then my brothers didn't lose all of their stuff. And it just the extent of the abandonment, like the weird like enmeshment and the disengagement, the abandonment, like my entire life has just been like this drastic. And now that I'm an adult and I finally have like stability and I'm reparenting myself, I'm like, this is insane. Like I don't know how to, you know, like ever reconcile with the fact that my mother has so severely abused me and my siblings, and she still actively tries to be in our life just to continuously abuse us. Like, why? What do you want from me? You know? Like, what do you want?
That's why I stay away from my son because I don't want him to have that feeling about me calling him because it is like me actively abusing him if they only talk bad about me and make him confused when I call. Um, so I just take note of it all and save it and and just go from there. I don't live in Texas, so there's no point in me even trying to fight it in court. I feel like at this point, nor do I have the money to. But it's just like I feel you because it's like, what's the point of continuously trying to go through it? I don't know why she does that to you. I wish that your mother was more um, in tune with herself and more connected with the universe, and but she's not. I don't, and she's never going to be because
Yeah.
she is comfortable where she is, and she doesn't want to be I know this just because from dealing with my husband's mother. She's the same way. She's, tries to get hair extensions because her hair is falling out. She's been jealous of me since the first day I met her. I don't know if she was intimidated by me or what. My husband says that she expects me to kiss her butt, but I don't. That crosses my boundaries. I don't
Mm-hmm.
kiss people's butts, but I'll be very respectful. And I am respectful to her, but when she crosses my boundaries, I tell her that's crossing my boundary, and I don't think she's used to that. And I think your mother's the same way. If you tell her, "Hey, you're crossing my boundary," your mother's throwing a fit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how my mother-in-law is. And I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but she's the same way. Like I told my husband, he has a hard time because that manipulative. She'll reel him in and then spit him out.
Yeah. Yes.
And so he has a hard time. I'm like, don't tell her anything about us, mention anything about our lives, because she doesn't deserve to know anything about us because I don't know anything about her life. She doesn't call me or try to tell me anything about her. So don't mention me to her, your mother,
Mm.
and go no contact if you can. I think he's trying to go no contact, but as soon as he does, she contacts him, and he can't block her. He doesn't. He says his psychiatrist has even told him to block his mother, and he just can't do it.
Yeah. My therapist has told me so many times, like, your mother is not a mother. Your
Right.
mother does not love you. And you mentioned Corinthians, like, love
13.
unconditional. Yes. Like, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it does not hold account of wrongdoing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my therapist, I've had several therapists, but one of the male therapists that I've had, he was like, read that verse. Does your mom hold account of any perceived wrongdoing? Does she mention it every time she speaks to you, how you have hurt her, or how you were a horrible daughter, or how you didn't support her in the way she wanted? Does she mention that every single time? I'm like,
That's what my husband says about his mom. Every
mm-hmm.
time he says the reason he doesn't like to talk to her is because she's always bringing up something to try to make him feel guilty or to try to start a fight. Like she called yesterday, which was my birthday, out of nowhere, as if that woman doesn't know my birthday. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she calls me a creature instead of a human. Like, you know, it's just, I get it. I deal with that with my husband, and I can't stand it. I think it's so tacky. I think it's the
Mm.
tackiest type of behavior a person can have is that type of behavior. Like, how old are you?
I'm
How old are you?
23.
Not you, but your mother, and his mother. Like,
Yeah.
how old are y'all trying to
Yeah.
start this drama? You're too old to be acting this way. And if we're so young and we're not engaging in that type of behavior, shouldn't that be a sign that you're way too old? Or are you suffering from dementia? Are your hormones out of balance? Because mine are too, honey, and I'm not acting that way. So,
Mm.
like, what's wrong with you to have you call your son or your daughter and pile on guilt on them? And then, like, what she does to Jay is, well, I would have taken you to the VA. 10 years this man had never been to the VA. 10 years this man's been suffering from, this was when I met him. So now we're 13 years now, but 10 years this man had been suffering from traumatic brain injury and schizophrenia due to his traumatic brain injury. 10
Mm-hmm.
years this man was suffering from severe PTSD. And so he said he asked his mom to take him to the VA a lot, and she would just get busy and then change her mind or whatever. Now, because he has NPD, I know he tells me one story and tells his mother another story. So I don't know if that's the truth or not, but I do hear her often say, I would have taken you to the VA. He and I were together 6 months, and I had him at the VA and with a card and on health insurance getting paid. Why? Because I know how to do that stuff. Just because, I mean, my family's military. I mean, who doesn't know that stuff? I think it's common knowledge if you
Mm-hmm.
a bit of education. But I think that they on purpose didn't get him that money because they own a brick masonry business, and they wanted, if he had that money, why would he work for them at a rate of like
Mm.
$13 an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Why would he work for them at $13 an hour? And they kept him drunk, we complained about him being drunk, but then kept him drunk because they're drunk all the time. She's an alcoholic. Is your mother an alcoholic?
She became one. She became one.
Yeah.
She was very against any alcohol in the house, very, very against any form of like smoking, drugs, anything. My entire childhood, she has a younger brother who is 8 years younger than her who does smoke cigarettes. And she would get me and my siblings, flying monkeys, to go after him and say, "Oh, we don't want you to die. You're gonna die because you smoke. Don't smoke. Mama says you're gonna die because you smoke. Stop smoking," all the time. And now I've met with her a handful of times since my dad's death. She did not come to my dad's funeral. She refused to come to my dad's funeral.
How
But
selfish.
yeah, it's ridiculous. And I met her a handful of times after my dad's death because she would just show up to random family functions, that my dad's family functions that she was not invited to, including my aunt's funeral. My aunt just passed away from breast cancer that moved to her brain. Yeah, I loved her very much. But my mom just randomly showed up to my aunt's funeral and just reeked of just cigarettes. Like her teeth are just like reeked of cigarettes, and like she just like every time I see her, like I know some people that smoke cigarettes. Nothing against people that smoke cigarettes, but like chain smoke, like it's attached to her clothes. And she was so against it my entire childhood. I'm thinking to myself, like, are you trying to like cope? Like what's going on? Like concerned. I tried to talk to her about it. And she's like,
It's also a meal suppressant. So it could be
yeah.
also part of her, because that's where my mom started smoking for her meal suppressant. And then I smoke also, I think for the same reason, because here I've gained weight. So I think I do it as well to I think it's a subconscious decision for me. But when you dive into it, I think now that I'm talking about it, probably is part of that meal suppressant behavior where you're trying to,
Probably. That's probably part of it. But it's like that drastic change of like, you were so against this my entire childhood, and now you're doing literally everything that you enforced upon me that is bad. Like, don't ever do that. And
I know that's confusing, but she does have the right to change her mind,
yes, she does. But
Yeah, I
what
know
is
it's hard for
bizarre,
you.
what is bizarre for me is like if she wants to smoke, fine. But she it's such conflicting whatever,
It's
because
confusing.
yeah, because it's like she's very against, like she'll even say sometimes she's like, "Oh, I hate smokers," while she is smoking. And it's like, that's why I'm just like, what? Like,
She'll never make sense to you or anyone else. She doesn't even make sense to her own self. The reason is because she's so confused. She's so insecure. And this is what I say about my husband's mother. She's so insecure. Your mom is so insecure, and so is his mother. There's never, it's always going to be a paradox. Nothing's going to make sense. Nothing's going to be married together because a lot of times they'll say things just for the sake of being different, just for the sake of getting a reaction, just to be the center of attention. It's just, I've gotten to where I am so not affected by these people. I don't even care anymore. I will just leave. If I'm in a situation where I'm around that, I will straight up leave and I don't even care. Like I've left in the middle of dinner, like at a restaurant once, and we were in North Myrtle Beach and drove all the way back to the house in North Myrtle because we had a condo, and just left and drove because I just can't do it. I won't do it anymore. I don't have the patience for it. If I don't want to be in the middle of a situation, I will leave the situation with no problem.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have no family.
How are you feeling right now?
I feel great. I'm hungry.
Well, speaking directly to our listeners, what would your message be about healing from childhood trauma and breaking free from the toxic family system?
I took some notes on this. I think the best thing would be, like I said earlier, is mindfulness and setting boundaries and making sure when you set them that you don't feel guilty about speaking up on them. and voicing your your opinion or how you feel about a boundary. If someone tries to make you feel guilty, no, it's fine. You don't have to explain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And being grounded in self-love, you know. Well, I listen to positive affirmations a lot. And I think when you've never been told you're good enough or you're worthy or you're loved or you can be successful, it's important to tell yourself that anyway. But also to hear it maybe through positive affirmation audio might help. It helped me a lot because I never heard anything like that before from anybody. Yeah. I never heard anybody tell me they're proud of me, maybe once or twice in my whole life. And so you don't need to hear it from somebody else. You can tell yourself that, and that's enough. That's what took me a long time, is being present, making sure I'm always present where I'm at. And instead of letting my mind go to that trauma, to that conversation, to my outfit, to my weight, to, my problem with my eyes, just being present in the moment. And okay, right now I'm on a podcast, or right now I'm driving, right now I'm grocery shopping, right now I'm at I'm at a school function or a church function, and nothing else matters. And, I'm actively in this where I'm at right now and not drifting off into my head, which I used to do a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When you have trauma, you do that.
Yes, disassociation is
bad.
Oh, it's not good. Yeah, I really like what you said, being mindful, being present, being here in the moment. That it makes me think of, there's like a saying that says, like, if you have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, you're pissing on the present.
Right.
And it's very true. A lot of people will associate depression with being stuck in the past, and anxiety being stuck in the future.
Stuck in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. And God forbid you have both of them. Then you're never in the present. You're stuck somewhere else, just dissociating like hell.
Yes.
You have to have calendars and everything everywhere to know what day it is or what week, month, and sometimes you get a little lost. But that's why it's important, because I have both and PTSD. So I used to dissociate a lot. I wouldn't know what month it was or day it was. Sometimes I'd just be so lost in my training. But now mindfulness has helped me so much, has brought me back from being lost. So I would, I'd just get so lost. I'd have dreams, wouldn't know the difference between my dreams and reality because I was dissociated so bad. And so mindfulness just helps, because then you start to control your dreams and you start to you have more control of your life, and power is the most important thing we can have over ourselves.
Yes. I think there's a quote, to know thyself is the best power. To have knowledge of who you are, what you want, what you're going through, how that's impacting you, and what you're going to do about the situation is really imperative, especially if there's the growth mindset. Like, if you are in that growth mindset, which is something that I am in right now, if you are in that growth mindset, so many things are going to change for the better.
Right. It's uncomfortable though at first.
It is uncomfortable.
You get rubbed smooth in that abrasion, that tossing of the water. That's smoothing you out. It's forming you. It's making you're really going to be a beautiful, smooth river rock. You come out and go in, just throw it in, and you just jagged boulder that just kind of gets in everybody's way, just kind of bumping and rubbing everybody, and kind of rubbing everybody the wrong way with your trauma, and your attitude sometimes can be a little off. But then all of a sudden you start rubbing and getting the groove, and you start finding your place in the world. And I hope everybody does that. I hope you see your mama and my husband's mama. They're just rough old boulders getting everybody's way. But, hopefully that they've helped us rub smooth. And I like to think of life like that, just rocks in a river, flow. Let's just flow. Let's rub smooth, and let's let our bodies be smooth and flowing with the river, and let the water run over us, and just,
have peace that passes all understanding. That's what I really want, is have peace. Do you have any resources or recommendations you'd like to share?
Again, I can't speak highly enough on the psychedelic therapy I received from Mind Bloom. I was not paid or given any kind of promotional anything from it, but I, uh, gave it a chance. And next thing I'm going to try is a full body MRI because I've had so many issues with my skin and everything. And I'm going to see, is it just old age or can I blame it on something else?
Mm.
But Mind Bloom for sure. I think it's great, and it's legal in every single state in the United States of America. And once you've reached the point where you can be mindful and you've reached the point of self-love, then try Mind Bloom. But I don't recommend it if you're actively in a state of trauma or feeling trauma or you don't feel safe in your home or anything. I do not suggest it. But I'm not at that point. And my very first session, I spoke to my mother and worked out all of my trauma with my mother. My life changed that day. I mean, so I highly suggest it for someone who's really got a block, maybe like you got a huge block and you don't really even know it, but you know something is stopping you and you don't know how to address it or tap into that. I really feel like it's great for that. My second session was a little dull and I thought, oh, I didn't get anything out of it because all I saw was gold coins and they're all mine and they're all mine. That's all I did the whole time. But and my guide was like, it's you grabbing the success that you finally feel you're worthy of, that you never felt worthy of.
Yes. Yes.
I'm about to be in tears. Like we spoke on this a moment like earlier. It's like we didn't feel worthy because we didn't know we were worthy.
Yes. Yes.
So that's about all I've got.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. I greatly appreciate it, and I'm really proud of you. I am. It's your journey is amazing. What you have gone through, how you've overcome it.
Trying to, yeah.
You've overcome a lot. Like,
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like, and I know that the journey never ends. Like,
no.
You just got to keep on pushing, but you've come so far. And
one more thing to say. I want all any sex workers that are watching, I want them to know that if you want to get out of the business, there's nothing wrong with you staying in it. If you want out, you can get out of the business and you are worthy of a job in the squares life. You don't have to be a square. You can still be you and you can help others if that's what you feel your calling is, but you can get out of the business.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the journey to self-fulfillment is very long and it's loop-de-loop, but it is very possible to feel fulfilled in what you do. And if you guys need any form of peer support, please join us over on our Discord server where you can share anonymously whatever you're going through and get support. Because for me, like, peer support has really been super beneficial. And just talking to someone about, I've had like a really bad day and this is what's going on, like, super helpful, especially if like trauma is so stigmatized. Everyone thinks of it as like such a burden. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to destigmatize talking about these things because it's important. And if we are more able to talk about this, if we have the tools to talk about it, if we, have the emotion wheel, like, we understand ourselves, and we can start to understand others, I think that is what would be super healing for the world, honestly.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. I really enjoyed this. It's been therapeutic and you've taught me a lot. I love to learn, so it's just been wonderful. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on.
Today's meme of the week from our Discord is over on our YouTube channel. If you're watching us over on YouTube, here are our memes. Just a quick reminder before we part. This podcast seeks to forge a strong community, so please don't hesitate to join us over on our Discord to share with others and get peer support. On our Discord, we have so many different channels of discussion that include more than just trauma. So I'd love to meet you, know you, and support you in whatever way I can. At the end of every episode, we spin our wheel of emotions to learn a new feeling and how it correlates to my trauma. Okay, it landed on guilty. Let's see. Yeah, it landed on guilty right there, which another 2 words for guilty are remorseful and ashamed. You know, I have been getting rid of that guilty feeling, that shame feeling. When I was growing up, I was made to feel guilty for a lot of things that were not my fault, like all the time. Shame was one of the main emotions that I had growing up, especially when I was from the ages of 10 to 18, and especially when I left my house to go to college. You know, I did all the cooking and cleaning growing up. All of it. And I mean all of it. And so when I went off to college, my mother made a deal with me, even though she was not paying for my college, my dad was. She's saying, I will not pay for your college unless you come home every weekend. Mind you, I went to college in Lubbock, which is a little over 5 hours away from Dallas. She was like, you have to come home every single weekend and clean my house. And I was so ingrained in that toxic family system where I did for a while until I had auditions, because I was a theater major. I graduated with a BA in theater, and I had auditions and I couldn't come home. And she was calling me at every single hour when I was in class. Like, I had to turn off my phone because it was being disruptive, right? And she blew up at me and told me I was the worst child ever, that I was evil, that I was inconsiderate, and she was doing everything she could to make me feel guilty. Looking back on that, me now, 23-year-old Grace Lauren Taylor, I have no contact with her anymore. And I'm proud of myself for that, because, I'm not saying go no contact with your parents, right? But what I am saying is, for me, from my own experience, it was very healing, very validating. And immediately when I distanced myself from my mother, I stopped having that guilty feeling, because she was the one that was really putting it on me. And so, yeah, I got better because I removed those toxic people, toxic influences out of my life, and I started to heal and reparent myself, to tell myself, I'm not to blame for other people's misgivings. I wasn't even making that mess, right? It's not my job to clean up other people's messes. So going forward, some affirmation that you could give yourself if you're feeling guilty and it's not your fault. You can tell yourself that you are not responsible for fixing other people's problems, and you are not responsible for cleaning up other people's messes. That was something that I told myself all the time, and it really helped. If you'd like to support our podcast, we have a Patreon. Different tiers can get you a bracelet or a sticker. And we also have custom apparel designed by yours truly on our bonfire. The links to both Bonfire and Patreon are in the description. Any support helps us out a lot. So if you feel compelled to, please like, share, subscribe, and rate the show. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, you are capable of a fulfilling life in spite of your circumstances and your trauma. May you rise again from the ashes and be filled with peace, hope, love, joy, and understanding. I'll see you guys in the next episode, where we talk with Kat Lynn about their trauma. It's going to be a really great episode. All right. I love you guys so much. Bye.